It's time to play ball. My son has been working with his baseball team since the fall, and we are officially in baseball season. So if you're a mama like me and you got to stock up on all the sporting gear, now is the time. Academy Sports and Outdoors has the gear that you need, and you can bring it home for less. Gear up for baseball, softball, and t-ball with essentials from Easton, Rawlings, and Wilson at Academy. Academy offers free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup if you're like me and you forgot to get the equipment in time. Swing by your local store or shopacademy.com today and get ready to hit it out of the park. Guys, I did it. I got the Hydro Jug Traveler. It is the mug that everyone's talking about because it's completely leak-proof, cup holder compatible. That's the piece that I really wanted. I wanted it to go in my cup holder. And it has a hygienic circular flip straw that's easy for sipping. The Hydro Jug Traveler comes in multiple colors and sizes, 40, 32, and 22 ounces. I have it in 3 colors, so you can find the perfect bottle that matches your style. Go to hydrojug.com and use the code RACH to save 10% at checkout. That's code RACH at thehydrojug.com for 10% off at checkout. We work really freaking hard on this show. We produce at a very high level. We've had some incredible guests. I know that we put awesomeness out into the world because so many of you, when I am stopped at a coffee shop, at the grocery store, at an airport, y'all start always with the podcast. It used to be for a minute, it was like the books, right? But the podcast has usurped the audience in terms of appreciation. Not only do I know we're putting cool stuff out into the world, but also the work that we do here on the show supports a team of people and their families, which is awesome. So we're super proud of it. We never thought it would be here, but it's amazing that it is. Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I have a favor, which sounds kind of harsh if we just met, but I'm assuming that most of you have been a part of this community for a hot minute. And so I gotta ask, are you subscribed to the podcast? Subscribing to the podcast you listen to regularly is one of the best things that you can do for hosts like me. It helps to support the show and the staff that works on it. It ensures that you never miss an episode when we drop a new one. And here's the cool thing about subscribing. If you do it and then you hate this show, just unsubscribe. It's one click away. In the meantime, if you're listening, we would so appreciate it if you would just tap that button and make it official. Hi guys, it's Rach. Welcome to our 800th episode of the podcast. That feels wild. I was actually going to just start it the way I always start these by saying welcome to another episode, but it's not just another episode. It's episode 800, which feels actually mind-boggling to me that we have done this many. As I was laying out the calendar for April for our episodes, because I lay everything out like a month in advance. I try and think of what should I talk about in the month of April. And I was going through the calendar, and when I input a new idea for an episode, I am also inputting the episode number. And so when I was planning out April and realized what a big number this show was going to be, I was like, oh gosh, we have to do something. We have to talk about that. We have to acknowledge that. We have to talk about you guys as listeners and how you have been so ride or die with us since 2017 when we started this thing. So today's episode is dedicated to, gosh, the last 8 years and all the guests that we've had on the show, what we've learned, our favorite moments, our least favorite moments. We're going to do some reflection, and I'm going to do that through a list of questions that producer Jack sent me. So let's jump in. If you are new to this conversation, if you are just starting today, good news, you have actually more than 800 episodes. To be totally honest, we probably have closer to 900. But the truth is that when we first started to record, we didn't know we were supposed to number the episodes, which tells you about how much producer Jack and I understood about what we were doing. So the impetus for this entire show started back in 2017, and we kept hearing about a thing called a podcast. And really, neither one of us, I keep referencing Jack, who has been my editor, my producer, my videographer, like everything video, digital, audio, all of those things. Jack has been on the team. He has been my buddy. He has been my co-collaborator since, gosh, we always try and figure this out. It's got to be 10 years now, maybe more. But he's been with me forever. And back in 2017, kept hearing about podcast. And he was like, I think we should do this. And we, like most things we attempt, had no idea what we were doing or how to do that. Nowadays, I think it would be a lot easier. You'd go on YouTube and you'd watch a video like how to start a podcast. But it really was so the wild west of this world. So we were like, how do you record it? What kind of mics do you need? And how do you then take that recording and put it onto the internet? Okay. And then how do you figure out who can help with that? And how do you tell people that this thing exists? It was just so, it was a lot. And I really acknowledge two people in this process. One is Jack, who I've already mentioned, and two is Andrew, who has been our audio engineer and our audio editor since 2017, since the very beginning. So if you have listened to an episode of this show, Andrew has edited it for us and helped us get it out there. And that was because when I was like, okay, I'll do a podcast, how? And Jack was like, I don't know, but my buddy Andrew does this for someone else. I think he could do it for us. If I'm misremembering, I'm sure Andrew's laughing as he's listening to this and editing this episode, but that is how this band of misfits came together. And it is completely insane that we are still here. It is so insane. So when we first came up with literally just there should be a podcast, I was trying to think of what my own unique spin might be on a podcast and what I would most be interested in talking about. And I guess that would be my advice to any of you who are considering this is what do you think you could talk about for at least 100 episodes? I think it was Tim Ferriss I heard say this, where he was like, if you want to start a podcast, but you don't already know that you can talk about this same thing for 100 episodes, don't do it. Because the key to breaking out and breaking through is consistency. So many people start podcasts. Maybe you've noticed this. You'll see celebrities, they'll sign a big deal and they'll do like 8 episodes and then you never hear from them again. I think that could be for a lot of reasons, but I always suspect that it's because they don't get the kind of response that they're hoping for. And I'm assuming, having been in this industry for a while, that it's just because they didn't give it enough time. But the hard part about that is that enough time looks like probably at least a year to see some kind of traction. Though, I don't know, perhaps you're in a K-pop band and you start a podcast and it explodes right away, and then what I'm saying doesn't matter. But for us, we were like, what could we talk about a lot? And the thing that I was most interested in then, and still to a large degree I'm interested in now, is business. I wanted to talk about running a business and starting a business. So this podcast actually started in the business category, and it had a sort of funny name. It's not a funny name, but nobody knew how to pronounce it or what it meant. It was called Deus. Does anyone remember the Deus podcast? Have any of you been around long enough to remember Deus? I remember everyone on our team at work was like, you want to call it what? And I'm like, a dais. That's what it's called when you have a panel of people on stage and they're going to talk or share ideas. It's the term. And people were so confused and nobody knew what it was, but they were like, whatever, let this girl try. We started recording the Deus podcast by me reaching out to every woman I knew who was successful in business in any way and asking her to come on the show and talk to me. And come on the show meant, will you get on a phone call with us and let us record with terribly crappy audio a conversation that we're going to have? Those initial interviews were my literary agent at the time, Kevin Lyon. I had authors I knew like Jen Hatmaker. I begged and was so freaking pumped to get Joy Cho, who was one of the biggest bloggers I knew. Remember, this is 2017. So these names were like, I couldn't believe people were saying yes. And I think those first episodes were probably trash. I'm just going to go ahead and assume they were trash because I did not know what I was doing. I had never interviewed people before. I know that I did a lot of active listening in those early days. What I mean by active listening was I grew up in a church where we talk back to the pastor on stage. Someone would be answering my question and I would go, yes. Oh, okay. And that's just how I would still today interact with you if we were in person. That's how I would listen to you tell me a story. So I was doing it on the podcast. And so all of the first reviews of the show were like, hey, Rachel, we like it. Because remember, this was people who came to my blog were the people who were giving the podcast a chance. They were like, we like it, but could you please shut up? Essentially, could you please stop making noises while someone else is talking? So there was a lot that I had to learn. And I think that first, quote, season, we did 8 episodes. That was another big thing that we had to uncover was in podcasting, if you want to be successful, there's no such thing as a season. Well, I take that back. If you're doing like a true crime podcast where you can get 1 billion people listening to you tell a story that's inside of a 12 episode arc, fabulous. But if you're just doing the kind of show that this is, if you go away for a season, you will lose the audience. So we learned pretty quickly if we wanted to have any success in this space, we needed to show up consistently. And like, bless my heart, because that was only 1 episode a week. And it felt absolutely impossible. And now, to give you a frame of reference, we do 6 episodes a week. You heard me, 6. If you're not listening to all 6 episodes, you're probably normal. We do 6 episodes a week. The Sunday episode is sub 10 minutes, so it's 10 minutes or less, and it's just a pump up. It's not the same lift as the other 5 days of the week, but I really wanted to do Monday through Friday. And then we had this idea to do something on Sundays that might lift you up. And then I came up with an idea for a Saturday episode, and I was like, I need to calm down. But yeah, we do 6 a week, and it's so bananas. But I think that's also how we've gotten to the place that we've gotten. I think it would maybe surprise people to know what the cadence to produce at this clip looks like. It's not as much as you think. Because we have done it for so long, we really have a system down. In fact, right now, I am in the midst of writing my new book, which is fiction. I'm so freaking pumped. I am so excited about this book. It has been a very long time since I've been this excited about something I'm writing. Just, it's light. It's like you're going to read it by a pool. We're not fixing our lives. We're laughing. We're having a good time. All of that to say, I am spending almost every waking hour of my workday writing that book. And I'm taking 1 day a week, which is right now, today. This is a Wednesday. I'm knocking out all of my podcast episodes for you for an entire week. There is no way I would have been able to do that back in the day. I just didn't know how. I didn't know how to organize myself. I wasn't familiar with batch work. I didn't know how important it was for my brain, at least, to compartmentalize the type of content I'm working on in a given day. But now we just have a flow and we have a system and it is working. that is how we got from there to here. And it's been incredible. But one of the questions on this list is, did you ever think the show would last this long when you first started it? No way. And neither did. There's no way that Andrew, who's editing this, or Jack, who is producing, there's no way that any of us three thought we would still be here all these years later. In fact, I don't know that the show would have even continued if it hadn't been for Girl Wash Your Face. So, funny story about the podcast. We didn't know what we were doing. We figured out how to record it. We figured out how to edit it. Thank you, Andrew. We figured out how to get it onto the internet. We knew that some people were listening, but we really had no idea what was happening with it. And no BS, you guys, we had no idea how to check our stats. We didn't know that you could log in somewhere and see how many people were listening to the show. So we didn't know if it was 5 people or 5,000. We had no idea. And there was kind of a beauty in that because we weren't chasing anything and we weren't trying to like please anybody or hit a certain mark. We literally would just record whatever we thought might be interesting and we would put it out into the world. And for a very long time after that first season, I didn't interview people because it was really hard to get interviews. So I just stopped. I didn't know that you could hire people to like book people onto your show. So I just was like, well, I'll do solo episodes by myself and we'll put something out in the world. And we just kept doing that. We kept trucking, we kept putting stuff out. Look, everyone knows that toilet paper is not created equal. Not all rolls are the same. Some are too soft. Some, can we say, sort of crumble, if you know what I'm saying. Then other toilet paper is so strong that it can actually hurt. And let's not even talk about the toilet paper that is so thin, it doesn't get the job done. Angel Soft is soft and strong and always affordable. Come on, life is too short. There's too much going on. I don't want to have to overthink this. So pick up a pack of Angel Soft in the toilet paper aisle of your nearest retailer. That's Angel Soft, soft and strong. Simple. If you've ever learned about nutrition in a way that you didn't know before, and suddenly you're way more thoughtful about what your food is made with, what's on the back of the label, it can be really confusing when you're first starting out to understand what means what you should buy for your family, and what you should leave at the store. Well, now you can spend less time at the grocery store thanks to Thrive Market, your new go-to online grocery store for getting all of your healthy essentials delivered. With over 1,000 harmful ingredients banned from their store, Thrive Market's team of product researchers do the hard work so you don't have to spend all of your time trying to figure out what is in the food you are ordering. Finding better options for your whole family is super easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. You can scan a product you already have and it instantly recommends healthier items. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/rach for 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/rach. thrivemarket.com/rach. And then Girl Wash Your Face happens. It starts to grow. It gets bigger. It gets bigger. It gets bigger. And then all of a sudden, all of these agents, I lived in Austin, Texas, all these agents from LA and New York start trying to get to me. They're emailing, they're calling, and I'm like, why is everyone, I knew the book was doing well, but I was like, why are these people calling me? So finally, we start to take the calls and they're all podcast agents. And I'm like, well, that's cool. They want to like, do something because this book's doing so well. And my husband at the time was like, I think you need to take these meetings. Like everybody's reaching out. Something's going on. I think you need to take these meetings. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. So I start taking meetings and I remember there was a team from CAA, which is arguably the biggest agency in the world. And they're like, we really want a meeting with you. I'm like, fine, I'll do a call. They're like, no, we'll come to you. Y'all, I didn't live in LA. I didn't even live in Austin. I lived an hour outside of Austin in a little town called Dripping Springs. So these agents in suits got on a plane, flew to Austin, Texas, then rented a car, then drove for an hour to Dripping Springs, Texas to sit in my living room. And I was like, what is going on? So I'm in the living room in like a t-shirt and jeans, surrounded by these three guys in suits who are like pitching me on why they should be my podcast agents. And I was like, okay. And I'm talking. And at one point, one of them kind of looked at me funny. And he was like, do you know how many people listen to your podcast? And I was like, no, do you? And they were like, yeah, we just checked the stats. And I was like, you can do that? Holy crap. I'm like such a country mouse, like the Beverly Hillbillies, like, gee whiz, where? And they open it up. I'm like, oh, dang. Oh, cool. People like the show. It was so awesome because it had existed at that point for probably a year and a half. It did not have any ads. It was not monetized at all. And it just had this like loyal, awesome community, which I'm sure some of you are still listening. You remember those days. So no, it was all a fluke. I had no idea that anybody even cared. And when we finally started working with people to monetize the show, which means to put those ads in that you hear me reading, that was so scary to me because I thought, oh gosh, are people going to get mad that there are ads now? And isn't it funny, just as a side note, I don't know if any of you as entrepreneurs ever feel weird, maybe not just entrepreneurs, but people who create stuff and put it out in the world, that will create something. We know it's good because you got this whole audience of people who like it, or you've got customers, you know it works, but then we're afraid to ask for what it's worth. Isn't that funny? Like, I know a lot of you are entrepreneurs and you maybe have experienced that where you're charging less than anybody else in your community for the same thing. Maybe your item's even better, the quality's better, you know it's better made, you know you care more, but you're just so scared to monetize it. And ads on a podcast are funny because it doesn't ask anything from the audience. Like, you don't have to pay for the show. And quite frankly, don't tell the advertisers I said this, but if you don't like the ads, just fast forward through them. So it's not a heavy lift for y'all, but I just felt so much fear about putting ads into the show, and I shouldn't have, because we work really freaking hard on this show. We produce at a very high level. We've had some incredible guests. I know that we put awesomeness out into the world because so many of you, when I am stopped at a coffee shop, at the grocery store, at an airport, y'all start always with the podcast. It used to be, for a minute, it was like the books, right? But the podcast has usurped the audience in terms of appreciation. Not only do I know we're putting cool stuff out into the world, but also the work that we do here on the show supports a team of people and their families, which is awesome. So we're super proud of it. We never thought it would be here, but it's amazing that it is. Okay, so this section of questions is labeled Behind the Scenes Fun. It says, what's one episode that almost didn't happen, but you're so glad that it did? I think I could say, I'm like hesitant to name names, but then if I don't name names, what's the point? And how is it a fun episode for you guys to get the behind the scenes? So I will tell you, for the last 2 years, I have recorded interviews on the show at my home in Los Angeles. And I think it's so cool because people literally come into my home. I'm the one who opens the door. I don't have a team here. I mean, Jack's always here with me, but we're it, right? Maybe my husband's home if he's working from home that day. Jeffrey greets everybody at the door. So I open the door. I ask, do you need to use a restroom? Can I make you a cup of coffee? I just want it to feel very calm, very grounded, not high pressure, high stakes. Because if you think about it, most people who are coming to do the show are in the midst of press. If you didn't know this, celebrities are not doing interviews if they're not inside of a press cycle. They only do interviews when they're promoting their new book or their new movie or TV show or their album or whatever. You don't get the biggest celebrities on a random Tuesday. Like they really only come through when they're in the midst of doing a bunch of press for something. So they're exhausted, they're stressed, they have probably come from one or maybe more interviews, and they will leave here and go to other interviews. I always wanted for people to feel better when they left my home than when they came into it. But one interview that I really thought was going to go badly was Tiffany Haddish. Because when I opened my front door, I could tell she did not want to be here. Okay. Now, I would say this if she was here, and this story has an amazingly wonderful ending because our interview was awesome. So I'm not about to talk crap, I promise. But it was one of my biggest, holy crap, I don't totally know how to handle this moments of my entire career. So I opened the door. I'm so excited because she's amazing, huge comedian. I knew she was going to be interesting. She has so many cool stories. I opened the door. She looks phenomenal. And I'm assuming, pissed. She's radiating. I do not want to be here. I don't know why I'm here. She's by herself. So I open the door and I'm like, hi, how are you? And it's very short, one word answers, just not having anything. And I'm like, oh no, this is not going to go well. So I'm trying to chat her up as we're walking out to the studio in the backyard, not having it. I introduce her to Jack, and Jack is like, I know y'all have never met him, but he's like a human golden retriever. Everybody loves Jack. I'm telling you right now, we have never had a single guest come through this podcast that didn't absolutely adore Jack and want to take him home with them. So I'm like, okay, maybe she's not going to like me. She got to love Jack. Jack's the best. She shakes Jack's hand. She's just like not in it. And that has nothing to do with me. Number one, we all have bad days. Number two, she's in the midst of a press cycle. I don't know where she just came from. I don't know if she sat in traffic. I don't know anything, but I do know that I've got this hour with one of the biggest comedians I've ever been able to sit down with, and I don't want it to be a crappy interview. So have never in my life sat with someone and just been like, I was praying. I was asking my spirit guides for guidance. I was just like, I don't want her to leave here and still feel like this. And I don't know at what point it shifted, but I remember very distinctly it shifting in the interview. And I think if I had to guess, it is maybe because I am genuinely curious about everyone that I get to sit with, and her story was fascinating. If you haven't listened to that podcast episode, you should go listen to it. It was so fascinating. She's worked her butt off to get where she is. She's literally pulled herself up from the most harsh childhood to become one of the biggest comedic actresses working today. Like, her story's incredible. So I just had a million questions, and then she was so open. She was so honest. She did not pull punches. She did not like try and give me sound bites. So that's a really interesting thing about doing this work too, is a lot of people who come through are giving me, I can tell, a soundbite that their publicist has helped them to write. That's maybe a behind the scenes y'all didn't know. In fact, the easiest way to tell is if you've listened to a celebrity interview on my show or anyone else's and it's kind of boring, it's because the celebrity's giving sound bites. Sound bites are, they know the most common questions you're going to ask, and they have rehearsed an answer so that they make sure they answer in the quote right way. Tiffany Haddish does not do that. She shows up as her whole self, totally authentic. That interview was incredible, but I was scared to death when it first started because I was just like, oh no, how do we turn this ship around? It ended up being super awesome. So that's the episode that springs to mind, that it definitely thought it was going to go off the rails, and it ended up being super awesome. I think you guys know this, but in case you don't, my happy place is on the beach. Actually, that's not enough. My happy place is on the beach with an iced coffee in my hand. What a vibe. There are a lot of beaches out there, but there's only one people call the beach. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is made up of 14 coastal communities and 60 miles of sunny beaches. Together, they create a place that makes you feel like you belong. Shine and dine in a foodie haven with oceanfront patios, fresh seafood, low country classics, and southern favorites. Plus, my favorite, you can listen to live music any day of the year, outside at laid-back beach bars, at world-renowned theaters, or right on the boardwalk. You belong at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Plan your trip to the beach at visitmyrtlebeach.com. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. It's spring, or I guess I should say it's almost spring. But the second the weather starts turning and getting even slightly warm, I start looking for spring style. I think it goes back to when I was a little girl and I used to get an Easter dress. There's something about this time of year that makes me want to look for long, flowy maxi dresses and fun date night outfits, and maybe even something to spruce up my wardrobe for work. At Saks, you can find instant inspiration for whatever is on your list. Curate a brand new closet refresh, or just get one or two great pieces to upgrade your overall look. If you're looking for shopping to be fun, easy, and stylish, then head to Saks for inspiring ways to upgrade your personal style. Shop Saks.com. Next question is, have you ever been starstruck by someone? 100%. Two people I'm going to say that I felt like I don't know how I'm sitting here. The first was Shania Twain. I mean, enough said, right? Like, I am a 42-year-old woman. I grew up listening to country music, which means I am the exact age that grew up rocking out to every song she ever came out with. And it's Shania, and she came to my house. That's also like this added layer of my brain explodes. It's not just the fact that I get to interview these people. It's the fact that they come to my home. Shania brought her husband. Shania actually, I'm like so nervous about it if I could just tell, but whatever. Shania had the biggest entourage of anyone who's come through. I mean, she had a whole crew. And people bring a lot of people sometimes, but she definitely had the biggest crew. And I think it's because they were in the midst of like a whirlwind day. And sometimes when people are in the midst of a whirlwind day, they have hair, makeup, videographer. Shania had her husband. And I mean, it was just like, I don't even remember how many. It was a lot. So much so that they could not all fit in the podcast studio with us. So her husband ended up sitting at my dining room table for an hour and a half while I interviewed her out in the backyard. But then my husband felt weird because he was like, oh, this guy's in our house. They're both European. So he's like, oh, well, I'll, sit. And so he ended up sitting with Shania's husband for an hour and a half. They just like chatted. He made him coffee. Like, it was a whole thing because he was just like, there's this guy sitting at my table. But yeah, that tripped me out. I was definitely like, my hands were shaking. My voice was shaking a bit at the beginning. I couldn't believe that she was here, and I couldn't believe that I was sitting with her. And in those moments, I'm really trying to stay present and grounded in my body. But I'm also just like, don't be an idiot. Don't say something stupid in front of Shania. And then I think, okay, you're making this about you and how you look, and this moment is supposed to be about the audience and what questions or conversation I might be able to have with this woman that the audience would find helpful. So it's like a whole thing. Some guests, I'm very present, sitting with them, just like flowing. Shania, I was just like trying not to pee my pants. The other person that I was completely starstruck by, and I'm going to caveat this by saying, I don't care what your politics are. Sitting with a president will make you want to poop your pants. Back in 2018 or 2019, I was asked to interview Joe Biden. Now, y'all, we know how everything went from there. We know that now, but I'm talking 2018. Okay, this is before anything. We didn't know he was running for president. This is like, they asked me to interview former Vice President Joe Biden. And even that felt really terrifying for me because I have never done anything political. I don't talk about politics. It's just like not my bag. I actually hate politics with a burning intensity. But I was like, well, this is so cool. I'm a little girl. I grew up on a street called Weed Patch Highway. And they are asking me to interview a former vice president. This is massive. And it was on his book tour. He'd come out with a book, and it was on his book tour. He was not vice president anymore. And everyone was wondering if he was going to run. So they asked me to interview him. I'm like, it's too big of an opportunity. Plus, I was so scared. And when you're that scared, but it's a big opportunity, you have to do it. You must do it. Pressure is a privilege, Billie Jean King. And that felt like a lot of pressure, and I wasn't totally sure if I could pull it off, but I had to try. Here is the tea. If you want to know the tea, this is the biggest tea I've got. 2018, I go to interview him. It's at some big theater outside of Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. They put me up at this fancy hotel. I get a fabulous new blazer from Veronica Beard. I'm ready to go. I've read the book. I have a rough idea of what I want to say, but I did not prepare questions in advance. As a side note, I have never prepared questions in advance for any interview I've ever done. Sometimes there's someone coming through that I'm really curious about something. I have a couple ideas of just things I want to know, but I don't prepare my questions. I just sit with the person and we have a conversation. And I promised myself that I would do the same thing, even though it was a huge moment for me. So I read the book. I felt prepared. I'm backstage in my green room and they say, would you like to meet Joe Biden before you interview him? And I am like, 1,000,000%, because I am so scared right now. Like, I am peeing my pants, so terrified that I'm like, absolutely. Because I thought if I could just maybe like break the ice before we go on stage, my voice isn't going to shake, which as a speaker is like my forever greatest fear, is that my voice is shaking and you can tell that I'm peeing my pants. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. They bring me to the green room and I'm thinking I'm about to walk into the West Wing. That's what I have in my mind. Like every TV show I've ever seen about politicians, there's 500 people around. Like this is about to be chaos. I'm going to go in, I'm going to shake his hand, and then I'm going to leave. They bring me to his green room. They open the door. It is just Papa Joe. There's literally no one else in the room except your grandpa. Now, again, we all know how it all went down. But I'm just going to tell you my perspective of the man I met that day, not the politician, not the president, not all the things that just happened, none of that. Just the man that I walked into that room and met that day. I felt like I was meeting your favorite grandpa. He was the sweetest, kindest, most unassuming old man, because honestly, even then I was like, wow, he's pretty old. That's what he was. And I had read this book, so I knew he devoted his life to, civil service, and like he had so much tragedy. So he's in the green room. He turns around. He's drinking a cup of coffee. I walk in, shake his hand. He's like, "Would you like a cup of coffee? I can make you one." I'm like, "No." And I'm also like, what is going on right now? Not at all what I was imagining. He's like, "Would you like to sit down?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So we just start chatting. And I just start chatting like you introduced me to your grandpa, and I'm chatting it up. I love old people. They're some of my favorites. So I'm like, let's just talk. This is a rare opportunity. And I figured he might tell me some things when it was just the two of us. He might tell me some things when it was not in front of a big audience. So we're chatting, and here's my tea, you guys. This is way before he had announced his presidency, and everyone was like, will Joe Biden run? Who's running? Who can beat Trump? It was like a whole thing. So we're chatting, and he's telling me about his sister. He's like, "My sister's amazing. I don't even know where I'd be without her. She has run every single campaign I've ever had since the very beginning, and she's about to run this next one." Did you catch that? Because I did. He just said, "My sister has run every campaign I've ever run, and she's about to run this next one." And he looks at me, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and y'all, it is dead silence, because he just accidentally slipped that he's about to run for president to me. And I know that he just slipped that, like, nobody had this information publicly, and he accidentally just told me that he's about to run for president. And I'm like, I mean, I must have looked like that emoji with the giant eyes. I was like, I said literally nothing. And then I was like, "So do you have any fun plans for summer?" Like, I just asked the most innocuous, like, the throwaway question. I changed the subject as fast as I could, because I was like, "Oh, we are not, for sure, I am not supposed to have this info." And I did. It was so exciting. So I've sat on that story for, 7 years, and we all know how it turned out. But yeah, I know I have very strong opinions about his presidency and everything that happened, but I will say meeting him that day could not have been more lovely. So there's that. But I for sure was so flabbergasted to have that opportunity. And by the time we got out to the stage, I actually was really proud of that interview, because I felt like I got some realness. It wasn't the canned answers. I actually really loved that interview. So, okay, this is a good one. Have you ever scrapped an entire episode, and why? We have never scrapped an episode, but we have had a very famous guest. I will not name names, because I am not going to name names when it's not a positive thing. We had a very famous guest, like really big name, that we edited the interview at least 4 times. And that is not common. I don't think that's ever happened before or since. But it was too big of a guest to scrap the interview. When a publicist or a booker gets someone on the show, especially someone big, you can't not play that conversation. Like, you wouldn't, it isn't done. You wouldn't just be like, "Oh yeah, your big celebrity that you gave me for a sit down, we're not going to play that because they didn't make any sense," which is what happened in this case. So we just edited it over and over and over. Like, Andrew did a first pass, then Jack listened, he did a pass, I listened, I gave notes. Yeah, we edited that episode quite a lot, because they would have come across really bad, not because they were saying like bad things, but because, if I'm being honest, I think they were probably on something, and they weren't making sense. Like, they would just get so distracted. They would go off on tangents. They would start talking about something else entirely. They would weave back around. So we basically Frankensteined the edit where we would take, okay, this is where they started that story about doing that movie, and this is where they ended it like an hour later, but let's put those two together so they make sense. So we really worked on that one. And it was just, I wanted to protect the person. I never, never, never want someone to sit down with me and do the show and have it not reflect well on them. So we do edit. If there's anything that I think, oh, that's not going to sound good, or you probably are not going to appreciate later that you said that about your mother-in-law publicly, like we will just remove that stuff. If any guest decides later that they don't feel comfortable about something they said and they're like, hey, can you remove that? We always do. I always joke that the most juicy tidbits that happen in interviews on the show have all been edited out, because I'm not here for the gotcha moment. I'm not here for the clickbait. I'm not here for the social media clip that goes viral because it makes the person look really bad. Like, that's just not my vibe. I'm trying to put goodness and positivity into the world. So we didn't scrap that episode, but it is the only time that we edited that heavily, because otherwise I just think it would have been pretty embarrassing for them. This says, what's one thing that always goes wrong behind the scenes that listeners never hear about? I don't know that anything goes wrong behind the scenes, but I do think because of the magic of Andrew Weller, our audio engineer, you don't hear me say a lot of things that would be annoying. I say so a lot. It is my filler, like so. You probably still hear that in this show, but understand that Andrew has removed like 50 of those. I think the fillers, the uhs, the ums, I will record a lot. And I have this amazing safety net in the guys between Andrew and Jack, because I will just record for you. And if I say something, like if I flub a word or if that doesn't make sense, I always say the phrase, let me take that again, which is a cue to Andrew that we're going to edit out what I just said and go from where I'm going now. We probably have, I don't know, 1,000 moments of me saying, I'm going to take that again. This would be an amazing moment, Andrew. You've probably gotten rid of them all, but you could just stack them on top of each other of me saying it over and over. But anyway, that's the only thing sort of behind the scenes, is I do have this amazing backup in these guys to help it sound better than it would in person. I actually give this note a lot to people who come on the show who have their own podcasts. There's one guest in particular, I really like their podcast and I listen to it a lot. So when they came through, we're chatting, they were giving me advice about another area of the business, and they were asking me about the podcast. And I said, as a listener of your podcast, can I give you a note? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes. And I said, okay, well, my word is so. It's how I start most sentences. Your word is something else. They say it all the time in their episode. I was like, it's actually very distracting as a listener. Probably like me back in the day when you guys were like, please stop making noises while people respond. But they say it over and over and over, and I can't not hear it. It's kind of like nails on a chalkboard. And the wisdom they're offering in their show is so great. But those words, like it just, oh my gosh. So I was like, your phrase is this. And they started laughing. Their assistant was there. Their editor was there. They started laughing too. They're like, oh my gosh, you're so right. They do say that all the time. You know what you should do? They're like, oh, I know. Like, stop saying those words. I said, no. Record the episode however you want. Because if you can feel more natural and comfortable, you're not going to second guess yourself. It's going to be a better podcast episode. Record it however you want. Then have your team transcribe it. Then do a search for those two words that you say over and over and over, and just have the audio engineer edit all of them out. It's such an easy fix, and it makes the quality of what you're delivering so much better. Okay, this says, what was your least favorite moment of the podcast? To be totally truthful, I have said yes to some guests that I wasn't that excited about, but we were trying to fill interview slots. So I would agree to people. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. What they do for a job sounds interesting, or that book sounds interesting. And I learned the hard way that if we as a team do not watch that person in a long form interview and approve of their ability to do a long form interview, we run the risk that the podcast episode is going to be so dull for you guys. Those are my least favorite moments. I absolutely hate when I know that I am sitting with someone who doesn't know how to give an entertaining interview, because it is a very specific skill set. You can have the coolest job in the world, but if you don't know how to talk about it in a way that people want to listen to, it just sucks. So I hate when I would be in those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 10 minutes into this interview. I know this episode's not going to do well. I know this person doesn't know how to do it. I'm going to try everything I've got, but I know it's not working. That's a bummer, because it just feels like, oh, this is not the right intention. And I wish that I would have been a bit more strict. I've gotten into that situation by saying yes when my gut knew to say no. So I got better and better. And actually, right now, while I'm in the midst of writing this book, I'm not doing any interviews at all because it's way too time consuming. I don't know what I'm going to get. It takes me out of the flow of writing. And here is a secret that might be shocking to you guys, or maybe not. The episodes where I record by myself do twice as well as the interviews that I do. And it does not matter who the interview's with. I have interviewed some of the biggest, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Matthew McConaughey, Kristen Bell, Shania Twain, Tim McGraw. Like, I have gotten to sit with some really cool people, and it does not matter who it is. It will not do as well as an episode I do by myself. Doing interviews is fun, mixes it up, but right now, while I am writing, I am just doing solos by myself. What's the hardest part of doing a weekly show for this long? Coming up with new and fresh ideas. I don't ever want y'all to get bored. I want to feel like I'm providing value and helping you in some way. And I think the way to do that, or the way that's worked for me, is focusing on things I'm interested in, I know you're interested in, but doing it through the lens of where I'm at in my life right now. Because right now, my oldest son just decided which college he's going to go to. That's so exciting. That's a very different life phase than when I started this, when that boy was 10 years old. Very different life phase. So as long as I stay in my lane, but use the differences in my life experience, I feel like we can stay on this journey together. The question is, have you ever wanted to quit, and what kept you going? Absolutely. 1,000,000%. Doing the weekly show and doing this many episodes, it can get stale. It can start to feel dull. But the only times I've wanted to quit were when I was in the midst of really hard seasons personally. Very specifically, 2 times that I was, or 3, I guess, if I count the divorce, going through a divorce, going through a miscarriage, and when my children's father died, were 3 times that it felt so impossible to record episodes of this show. Because think about it. If you even have the ability to record, you just want to be like sad and negative and this is hard and it's crap, and you don't even want to get out of bed, let alone be on and record something. So that felt super impossible, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to listen to a podcast where they were giving you ideas and positivity and now they're like, hey, I'm grieving. So that felt very hard. But on the flip side, needing to get up and do the show and record the episodes actually was very helpful for me, because it was normalcy in the midst of a world where I just wanted to pull the covers over my head. So it's been hard at times, but I'm really grateful that it has been there. Okay, all-time favorite guest. All-time favorite guest. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a hard question. This seems like such a canned, like, oh, I can't tell you. One of the funnest interviews I ever did for sure was Bert Kreischer. He was hilarious. He is hilarious. We were like dying. He was here for a couple hours. He went inside and like laid on my sofa. I later did his podcast. I did his wife's podcast. That was a lot of fun. I think the comedians are always really fun because you just know you're going to laugh that day, which is such a gift. I loved Matthew McConaughey, not gonna lie. What a beautiful human. And also, he was so present. He was so authentic. Yeah, that was amazing. I mentioned him earlier because he always pops in my head as a favorite. I love Tim McGraw. He's been on the show twice. Just really solid. Like he's, country music, which is always going to be a big one for me. But he has a very spiritual grounding, which I love. My most like if this was a school yearbook and we were like most likely to succeed and most whatever, I'll tell you one of the most beautiful humans I've ever seen in my life. Like you actually cannot believe what she looks like in person is Jada Pinkett. Y'all, you've never seen that before. She was ethereal. She was like glowing from inside. That was wild. She was so beautiful, is so beautiful, and was an awesome interview. I had a lot of fun with her too. So I've been really lucky. I've had some amazing people. I've definitely had some duds. I've definitely had some that I'm like, oh wow, I don't know what we're doing. I love Carla Hall. She's been on a couple times. Absolutely love talking to her because she's like, if she lived in LA, I feel like we'd be real life friends because she's my vibe for sure. She loves to cook. She's very spiritual. She's funny. She tries stuff. She like doesn't give a crap. Like I really like Carla Hall. So yeah, been super, super lucky with the people that I've gotten to sit down with over the years. If you could have any guest back tomorrow, who would it be and why? This is a fantastic question. Actually, a recent person. It would be Uzo. Uzo Aduba, I had on the show, gosh, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And she was so lovely and wonderful. But I now am watching The Residents on Netflix. Have you guys watched this? I finished episode 5 last night. I'm obsessed with this show. I love it so much. And she's the star of the show. So when I interviewed her, we didn't talk about this at all. I don't think it had been announced publicly. I don't know. But she is phenomenal in it. And I wish that I could sit down with her now and talk about the process of that show because it's so fun. If you love a whodunit, like remember I told y'all I love Only Murders in the Building? If you like that show, I feel like you'll love The Residents. So check that out. Ooh, let's see. What do you want the next 100 episodes to look like? Fantastic question. Yeah, more of the same. I love this cadence that we're in, and I love hearing from you guys on the podcast hotline that you love specific styles of episodes. Like I feel like we're covering our bases really well. So we have, Monday, Tuesday are those solo episodes where it's me talking, giving you ideas and advice. Wednesday is the Ask Rach episode. That's where I'm answering call-in questions. Thursday are our mastermind episodes. So that's when we take a single topic and then we gather sound bites from some of the best experts and teachers that we've ever had on the show discussing that one topic. We've got incredible feedback about masterminds. You guys love that like deep dive from a bunch of different perspectives. And then Fridays is Friday Fave. That's where we play an episode that did really, really well for us many years ago. And since we have so many new listeners, it's a chance for new listeners to discover that episode or maybe some of you to revisit it. And Sundays, that's the hype up. That's when I do a little pep talk for you, give you some encouragement and some inspiration before you start the week. I love the cadence that we have right now, and I hope to keep it going. Maybe I'll do interviews again in the future. Right now, I'm just writing. And so until this book is done, that's all we will do. That's where we find ourselves today, guys. That's a review of 800 episodes. And Truly, we would not be here without you. We are so grateful for you for listening to the show. Some of you since the very beginning, some of you maybe are new, but whether you listen to one episode or all 800, we are grateful because you listening to the show is what makes it possible for us to do this work and to support our families with this work. So thank you from all of us. And we will be back soon with more podcast episodes. Until then, as always, I love you and I'm rooting for you. The Rachel Hollis podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Hey, it's me, Paige DeSorbo, and I'm so excited to share my new shoe collection at DSW, filled with my favorite styles and trends for spring. Because if you know me, you know I'm kind of obsessed with shoes. And by kind of obsessed, I mean head over heels. You're going to love these shoes, so snag super cute styles like cute flats, fun heels, and cool sneakers from the Paige DeSorbo collection right now at your DSW store or dsw.com.
Businesses that are selling through the roof, like Untuckit, make selling and for shoppers buying simple with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And with Shop Pay, you can boost conversions up to 50%. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Untuckit uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/podcastfree. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/podcastfree to upgrade your selling today.